Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Deciding to Soar, Living Life Your Own Way. My name is Sharon Jameson, and I am a life strategist, a corporate leader, an author, a minister, and a mom. And I am so grateful that you are here with me today. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. We are an unedited, unscripted space where I share what I am learning in my own life, as well as what I'm learning from working with so many amazing healers and visionaries, leaders, entrepreneurs, and brave souls, and people just like you. So, welcome, and I am so grateful that you are here. Now, today I feel led to share something that happened to me, something very personal and something that I've carried very quietly for a while. And I have to be honest with you about why I'm sharing it. Because so many of you who have been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you know that I tend to show up, or I try to show up, as a teacher, as an encourager, a motivator, a strategist, a leader, the woman with the framework for the moment. But today I am coming to you very differently and very intentionally, not as a coach, but as a woman who has been exactly where you might be right now. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's talk. Let's share today in a very vulnerable way. So a while back, I came home from church one Sunday and I walked through the door and something in me just gave away. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. I took off my clothes and sat down on the edge of the bed and I just started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, but just that silent, steady stream of tears that seem to be waiting for a moment when no one is watching. And I'm sure that you have had a similar experience in your life. And I just let the tears come. I didn't try to slow them down. I didn't try to make myself feel embarrassed. And when the tears finally slowed, I did something I had not done in a very long time. I told myself the truth, the unmitigated, unfiltered truth. Now, I want to share this with you because I know that some of you may be thinking, you may be looking at other women in your life, women who are showing up, still standing, still building, still producing, still leading, still looking good, and assuming that they have quote unquote arrived, whatever that means, and arrived at a place that you have not arrived. And they might look to you to be fine in all the ways that you feel like you are not fine and that you're not okay. And you may feel that they are just living their best life where you are just simply existing. And so today I want to disrupt that assumption because some of us, me included, who may look like we have it all together, are doing exactly what you're doing. We are mending while we are moving. We are holding ourselves while we are hurting. We are showing up while we are quietly running on empty. We are leading and hoping sometimes someone shows up to help us hold the load. And I'm one of those women. I am a 60-year-old Black woman who left home at 16. I have spent over 40 years in corporate America. I have been married. I have been divorced. I have made mistakes as a parent. I have built businesses, closed businesses. I have struggled in my faith, questioned God. I have wrestled with my body image. And lately, I've spent around 20 months just healing from an illness that finally made me stop running. And through all of that, I kept showing up. I kept producing. I kept encouraging others until that Sunday when I sat at the edge of the bed and the tears said what I had not been willing to say. The tears said, Sharon, you're not okay. Now, here's what I told myself the truth about that day. And I want to be very specific because I think language matters. On that day, I knew I was not depressed. I want to be clear. I knew that I was not depressed because I've been depressed before and I know how depression feels. I know how it shows up in our lives. I know the weight of it. I know how it and what it means to navigate that particular kind of darkness and heaviness. But what I was feeling was something very different than depression. It was something that was less visible. It was quieter, but it was just as real. And what I realized that I was experiencing was spiritual depletion. And I want to pause right there because when I first put those two words together, spiritual and depletion, when I put it in the same sentence, something inside of me just kind of resisted that because my religious upbringing and my father being a minister and all the ways I understand being a minister made me feel almost guilty placing the word spiritual next to the word depletion as if I should have been able to pray my way through it and serve my way through it and worship my way through it. But naming it as spiritual depletion was not a crisis of faith. It was an act of faith. And it took a while for me just to sit with that because spiritual depletion is something that I find that many of the amazing healers and entrepreneurs and leaders, other ministers that I have the opportunity to coach or to be in community with, they experience spiritual depletion too. So, what is spiritual depletion and how is it different from burnout? Because we hear that word burnout everywhere we go right now. So, here's the difference burnout is about exhaustion from overwork. It's about doing too much for too long. And yes, that is part of my story. But spiritual depletion goes deeper than your schedule. It's deeper than being overworked. It's deeper than having a full agenda or a full checklist of activities that you must get done by the end of the day. It goes beyond just work. Spiritual depletion for me is what happens when people, in my case, a woman, and many of my clients, women, have been giving from their spirits, giving from the deepest and the truest parts of themselves for so long and to so many people and giving of themselves in so many directions that they lose access to themselves. So these are women who are still functioning, they're still showing up, they're still leading, they're still achieving and accomplishing, but something essential feels gone. And she knows it, I knew it, they know it, even though we cannot always name it. And this is what it might feel like so that you have some context of what spiritual depletion might look like in your life. It felt like for me going to church and feeling obligated to go instead of needing to go out of spiritual renewal. It felt like a place that once fed my soul was feeling more like a place of activity or performance. It can feel like work, becoming mechanical. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher, a lawyer, a plumber, a doctor. It's that same feeling of just going through the motions and showing up while parts of yourself quietly withdraws behind a professional smile. For some of us, it feels like code switching. It's when code switching feels like it's shifting from just being a strategy in corporate settings or organizational settings. And it feels like a shift from strategy into something that feels like slow, gradual self erasure. slow, gradual withering away, of chipping away of who you are. And it's that bone deep weariness that has absolutely nothing to do with sleep either. You can sleep 10 hours a day and wake up and still feel this sense of depletion. It also can feel like when you are in relationships with people at your job or at home or in your community organizations where people always need you but never feed you. They don't feed you emotionally, intellectually, or spiritually, but always require something from you. It may also feel like being engaged in friendships where you just feel like you don't want to return calls, and not out of being cruel, but because you feel like the conversations are empty, or you feel bored, or you feel like the conversations are usually one sided. And most of all, it can also feel like just this quiet desire to stop, not to disappear, but just finally to rest. Even if you cannot clearly articulate what that rest needs to feel like and what that rest needs to be like. It's like you crave this sense of wanting to disappear, but you can't put your finger on it because you just feel in many ways like blah. Well, that Sunday when that happened to me, I realized I had run out of places to hide. I could not outrun it with work or service. I could not outrun it by showing up um, at my job. I could not outrun it by showing up for everyone else and making myself feel valuable or important in someone else's life. I had no escape. And so I did the one thing that I probably have been avoiding unconsciously is I had to come back home to myself. And as uncomfortable as that was, it was uncomfortable. It was also very sacred because at that moment was probably one of the most honest seasons of my life. And it started to make some changes, some critical changes, and helped me to make some important pivots in my life. And not only in my life, but when my clients have experienced that place where they come back home to themselves, they also feel this sense of relief, but this sense of awakening and this sense of feeling that they have come back home into their bodies. So the question might be, why am I sharing all of this today? Well, I'm sharing because I want you to know something. If something in you just exhaled when I was talking, if something in you whispered that, oh, wow, that sounds like me. If you have been calling it stress, burnout, or just been tired, I want you to know that spiritual depletion might be what it is. And yes, spiritual depletion for some people might feel too big, too abstract, too hard, too much to emit. But I want to tell you, irrespective of all of that, it's still real. And it's a feeling that many people are having. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you are ungrateful. It doesn't mean that you're not successful. It doesn't mean that you are failing. It means that you are depleted. And it also means that you're not alone. So I want you to know that the woman talking to you right now, me, I have been in that hollow place and I came back, not because I have everything figured out. I don't. But because I'm finally willing to admit that to myself and to be honest about where I was so I can position myself to where I feel called to go. So today I want to give you a simple framework, something that's really helped me and something that I'm been working with many of my clients about. And there are only three things, and I call them the three N's because I love a good framework. Framework helps us not only have understanding, but it also helps with processing. And if you are driving or if you're walking or if you're doing the dishes or helping your child with homework, I want you to remember these three things. They're I hope I made it easy to remember. And it's called name it, notice it, nourish it. Name it, notice it, nourish it. Now, the first N, name it. This is what I have learned from other amazing healers in my life. And that is that you cannot heal what you will not acknowledge. I was not the first one that said that. People have said that all my life, especially the healers and the ministers and the people that have been my advisors. And I know that sounds simple, but for women like us, naming our pain, naming our discomfort is one of the hardest things we will ever do because we have been trained and we have been socialized by our families, by society, by our workplaces, by our faith based settings, by our culture to minimize our pain, to act like we are not having any type of challenging experiences. And we have also been taught to compare our pain, to say I shouldn't complain or other people have it worse or I'm so blessed I can't be stressed and all the other things that we have been taught to say. But I want you to try to say something different today. I want you to tell yourself the truth without softening it, without negotiating with it, without trying to justify it, without comparing what you're experiencing to someone else's experience. Just want you to courageously name where you are. Honestly, just say it out loud if you can. For example, it's okay to say, I am spiritually depleted. I am empty. I am tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. Because I know that when you name something, you stop being controlled by it. So name it. The second N is to notice it. So once you have named it, I want you to do a gentle, compassionate audit of where your energy is actually going. Again, not to judge yourself, not to change everything overnight. I'm not asking you to do any activity. I just want you to notice it. I want you to notice and ask yourself, what is feeding me right now at home? What is feeding me right now at my job? What is feeding me right now in my own business? And also, what is quietly draining me at work? What is quietly draining me at my organization? Who is quietly draining me in my life? And I want you to honestly look at your relationships, look at your obligations, look at your roles that you play at work, at home, at church, in your community, at your mosque, and ask that question about each one with courage and with honesty. And again, I don't want you to do anything. Noticing is not the same as acting, but clarity has a way of creating space even before anything changes, because clarity will help you identify what needs to move, what needs to change, what needs more reflection time. And so I just want you to notice it. The third N is to nourish it. Nourish it. Now, this is where you begin to feed yourself. And I'm not talking about a spa day or getting your nails done or getting a massage, even though all those things are important. I am talking about something that we can do daily that's more sustainable, more honest, and also my favorite, free. So each day, just name and nourish one thing. Not something polished, not something positive for the sake of being positive, just something real, something that belongs only to you. Maybe it is, I'm tired. Maybe it is, I miss who I used to be. Maybe it is, I am still here and that feels okay. And begin today. And I think when we start to name and notice and nourish, and when we write those things down, put those things somewhere, you will see them. Somewhere you can read them and refer back to them. They will start helping you rethink who you are and who you're being. And you could begin today. So I want to leave you with this. I want to remind you that, yes, I'm just like you. I am 60 years old, left home at 16 with no roadmap, no guarantee. I had no one to kind of show me the way with all the complexities that I have to do and deal with as a Black woman in organizational settings, as a Black woman in ministry with a very liberated kind of theology. And I have been figuring it out ever since, through corporate America, through marriages, through divorces, through ministry, through illness, through loss, through gains, through it all. And what I know for sure and what I know for certain is this: you cannot outrun your own depletion. And eventually, spiritual depletion will sit you down. And the only question is whether you sit down on your own terms or whether life does it for you. I sat down on my bed with those silent tears with nowhere else to run. And it was the most sacred, holy thing that happened to me in years. Because on the other side of those tears and on the other side of that honesty and on the other side of finally telling myself the truth, I found something I had lost. I found pieces of myself. And can I tell you, the pieces that I left behind were worth going back to? And I want to remind you that you are worth going back to you. You are worth going back to get the parts of yourself that you left behind to fit, to perform, to produce out of necessity, parts that you felt like you had to leave behind out of survival, parts of you that you had to leave behind because you didn't know any better. And I hope you don't wait for a crisis to give you that permission to go back home to yourself, to be honest, to sit down on your own terms so that you can begin again, whatever that means to you. So today, before I close, I want to offer you a few invitations, not obligations, just open doors for you to come through whatever one feels right for you, where you are specifically in your life. If today's episode found you exactly at the right moment, and I pray that it did, because I don't think you found this podcast by accident, I want you to please share it with one woman in your life who needs to hear it. She will not tell you she needs to hear it. She might not know she needs to hear it, but you will know because you see her even when she doesn't see herself. And send it to her, tag her, text her the link. You may be the reason she finally feels seen and starts to heal. The second door is if you want to go deeper on what we talked about today. I write a weekly email to people who subscribe to my newsletter where I continue these conversations in writing. And the link to subscribe is in the show notes. Please come find me. Would love to have you part of my community. And if something in you is ready to stop carrying this feeling of spiritual depletion alone, and if you want to be in an intimate space with a small group of women who are done performing and acting like they are fine and ready to return to themselves, I'm creating something called the Reclaiming Circle. It is almost ready. And if you want to participate, reply to my newsletter with the word reclaiming or send me a message directly at sharonjameson.com. And I will reach out to you personally in the next 7 days. one door or all three, whatever works for you. Come as you are. Participate at any way and do what you feel called to do. And as I close this episode, as I do every episode, I want to leave you with a blessing because you came here today and shared space for me. And I hope that I spoke to a part of need in your heart. And I don't want you to leave you empty. So I want to leave you with a blessing. In some faith settings, we call it a benediction. And it reads as follows. May you have the courage to tell yourself the truth, even when the truth is tender. May you honor what your spirit has been trying to say, even when you have been too busy to listen. May you release the need to perform and return to what is real, because what is real in you is more than enough. May you name what you are carrying. May you notice what your energy is going. And may you nourish yourself back to wholeness, one true thing at a time. And may you trust deeply, fully, without apology, that even here in this honest and sacred space, that you are still becoming. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not alone. And I still believe with everything in me that the best is still yet to come for me and for you. Thank you so much for joining me today on Deciding to Soar. And until next time, keep living life your own way. Blessings to you always.